With a couple of injuries and more, this is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we move on, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Rambles with notifications on, and don't forget to like the video. It appears as though All Elite Wrestling could be phasing out the use of explicit language on programming, as Dave Meltzer said this on Wrestling Observer Radio. There was bleeping on the show. The days of saying horse and swearing on TBS and TNT look over. Explaining the reason as to why Julia Hart has been absent from AEW programming, Fightful has reported that AEW TBS champion Julia Hart has been out of action for nearly a month since defeating Anna Jay at AEW Battle of the Belts. We haven't heard the particular injury she's been dealing with, but there had been some creative ideas floated that needed to await her clearance. Talking about a potential matchup between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins down the line, The Undertaker noted on his 6 Feet Under podcast, "I'll tell you exactly what this is. This is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, until they were going to put us on third. Excuse me?" Recalling his return to WWE Raw in August of 2022, Johnny Gargano told Chris Van Vliet, "I had an idea. I always had an idea. People ask me all the time, did you think about going to other places? Obviously, we all entertain the idea, but when I left, I always felt like I had unfinished business in WWE, and when the conversations were being had, it was one of those things where when I was a little kid growing up, I watched WWE. I dreamed of wrestling at WrestleMania. I dreamed of becoming Intercontinental Champion. I think all of these things I said in my return promo, pretty much. They're all very real, very true. Those are very real dreams I still do have to this day, and I can only do that one place. I'm very lucky to call WWE my home, because if you've watched my last night in the company, it was sad for me because I spent so much time in NXT around those people. I saw them almost every single day for almost 7 years, and I wasn't going to have that anymore, and that was my own choice because I felt like I needed to move on, and I needed that time away to be with Candace, to be with the baby, and just step away from wrestling for a bit and just recharge. But luckily everything worked out, and I think everything happens for a reason. We're back because I think there was a Cleveland show, and then like 2 weeks later I came back. People asked, why didn't you come back in Cleveland? It's because I wasn't under contract. Those things are still being discussed, and luckily it was fun to come back in Toronto because everyone expected Cleveland. And to be able to come back in Toronto in a building I've wrestled in before and have it be an absolute surprise. No one knew. The only people that knew I was back in the company and I wasn't even officially under contract. Terms were agreed upon and I was ready to go, but I wasn't officially back yet. That's luckily the way it was kept under wraps too. The only people who knew was me, my agent Candace, and I think Hunter, and maybe one other person in talent relations, and that was it. Going over details on QT Marshall's reported return to AEW after previously parting ways with the company, Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, "I don't know if he's back yet, but he's going to be starting back. Rocky Romero's role is going to be talent development, so essentially training wrestlers and working with the younger talent, and also international liaison, obviously with New Japan and CMLL. And QT, his key role is going to be talent development as well, trainer and everything like that. He left on December 31st, and Tony Khan said if he wants to come back, the door's open, and I guess he wanted to come back. I know that the idea was he wanted to make it as a main event wrestler. He worked a bunch of indies, but he can still work those indies if he's coming back for that job. So, starting up soon." following Bron Breakker becoming an NXT Tag Team Champion with Baron Corbin. This was said regarding his main roster status in WWE. As Ringside News wrote, rumors circulated about a delayed call-up for Breakker due to his NXT title win and potential creative adjustments. However, PW Insider reported that Bron Breakker is still scheduled to take part in Friday's double SmackDown tapings in Salt Lake City, suggesting the title win did not lead to immediate creative changes. Touching on the presentation of Seth Rollins in WWE, Bully Ray said this on Busted Open Radio. I'm saying to myself, we're right outside of WrestleMania, right outside of the chamber, and the guy's dancing? And I know it's part of his shtick, but I don't mind what Seth wears. I just wish his demeanor and his swagger was a little bit more badass as opposed to goofy. When it comes to where WrestleMania will be held next year, Ringside News wrote that speculation surrounds the location for WrestleMania 41, with Minneapolis emerging as a strong contender. This would mark the city's first time hosting the prestigious event, despite having previously hosted one of WWE's Big Four events, SummerSlam, in 1999. However, whispers within the industry suggest that Las Vegas may also be in contention. The city last hosted WrestleMania in 1993 at Caesars Palace, marking a significant moment in the event's history. Under the helm of Endeavor, WWE's approach appears to prioritize innovation over tradition, according to PW Insider. This is evident in their willingness to explore new locations and opportunities for growth. Traditionally, the location for the following year's WrestleMania is announced during the current year's event. This anticipation adds an extra layer of excitement for fans eagerly awaiting news of future spectacles. In light of the sex trafficking lawsuit against WWE and Vince McMahon, former WWE star Renee Dupree discussed the late Ashley Massaro's allegations against McMahon, saying on his Cafe de Renee podcast, "Remember when we had Charlie Haas on here and he told a story of how Johnny Ace fired him and Jackie the day they got back from their honeymoon? Well, let's just say Vince also made a pass at Jackie, which she declined. And you see what happened once she and Charlie got married. If you listen to this story, it seems like if you don't put Vince over and you don't boost his ego, he gets mad at you and takes it out on your career." Mentioning that an employee has left WWE, Ringside News said that Jennifer Pepperman, a senior writer and producer for WWE, has chosen to depart from the company. PW Insider confirmed the news and mentioned that she was not released. Pepperman made the decision to leave WWE, marking the end of her tenure with the organization. Pepperman joined WWE in April 2017, bringing with her a wealth of experience from the world of television production. Prior to her time with WWE, she served as a producer and director for several acclaimed soap operas, including notable shows like One Life to Live and As the World Turns, among others. Raw general manager Adam Pearce would acknowledge this departure on X, writing, "Shout out to Jen Pepperman. I have always appreciated your creativity, passion, and the countless times you've given to help me and others backstage over the years. I'll miss your energy, but I know you'll be great wherever you may roam. My gratitude forever." While it was previously thought that Drew McIntyre had signed a new WWE contract that went past WrestleMania 40, given he is advertised for live events in Italy in May, Dave Meltzer has clarified this situation on Wrestling Observer Radio. The answer to that is no, he has not signed a new deal, but he seems very happy so far with his new character and he's really excited about it. And they're working with the idea that he's not going anywhere. But nothing signed. I think the talk of him taking a lot of time off and everything like that, probably not. He'll probably sign a new deal, but it's still just a probable until it happens. McIntyre would also be asked about his contract status with WWE as he responded to West Sport, "I can't talk about that. I'll let the internet talk about it. I'll just keep watching. It's interesting. I'm not the only one that has a contract in WWE. It's just interesting that it seems to be mine that is on there every week for a year." Unfortunately, it seems an AEW star is out of action with an injury, as it was reported that Wheeler Yuta's absence has been noticed by many. Fightful Select has learned that the ROH Pure Champion has also been dealing with an injury, which is why he's been off TV. Yuta is advertised for a match alongside BCC and CMLL on March 29th. Following a match on AEW Dynamite, it looks as though a star has been hurt, with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful noting that the Jeff Hardy injury on AEW Dynamite happened on a shooting star press attempt from Sammy Guevara. We're told the fear initially was a broken nose and they'd be doing concussion tests. Ringside News added that, according to one of our readers in attendance, referee Paul Turner summoned the ringside doctor to check on Hardy. Hardy and Guevara improvised, culminating in Guevara executing a torture rack into a knee strike for the pin. Hardy appeared to have bleeding from the nose or lip afterwards. Post-match, there was a confrontation between Matt Hardy and Guevara, with the Hardys gesturing at him. Hardy left with ringside officials' assistance. Following the bout, Powerhouse Hobbs attacked Guevara, slamming him off the ropes through a table. Going over her WWE departure after being a part of NXT, Amari Miller said this to Steve Fall of Wrestling News. "It was mostly creative. They didn't have anything for me creatively, and my contract was ending anyway, so I felt it was best for both worlds. It mostly came from their side. Not like an, oh, please, I'm begging. It was more, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. There's nothing I felt I could have done. I worked my butt off. I was there every day. There is no bad blood on either side. It's perfectly understandable from a business perspective of where they were coming from. I did have injuries through my path in WWE. I get why it's, she might be a liability to end it all. It was nothing creatively for me. So it was time to go our separate ways. Doesn't mean I'm not going to go back. The door is not shut." Coach was saying he always puts his name behind me if needed. It's a very good, tight relationship between me and WWE right now. Giving his take on Swerve Strickland potentially being the face of AEW, Rob Van Dam said on his one-of-a-kind podcast, "Sure, I mean, I look around the dressing room, I'm thinking, why not Swerve? You know what I mean? Swerve's a great wrestler, character, cool dude, fans love him, he's gonna give you good matches. Is he the most famous or well-known person on your roster? No, obviously, that is seldomly a number one goal for any promoter, but it is a factor because you want to sell tickets. I don't know who's held the AEW belt, and I'm sure, not to talk down on anybody, but I'm sure it's been held by lesser wrestlers than Swerve is. He's on a great path either way. I think if he was champion, then people would be behind him and be pretty stoked." With TNA Star sending a joint letter to parent company Anthem over their termination of Scott D'Amore as president of the company, it reads, "Lynn and Scott, TNA/Impact is not just our employer and the company for which we work. It is a family that each of us has grown to love and cherish and trust with our bodies and our careers. A family for which we feel deeply and that desire above all else to protect. We are deeply saddened by the decision to remove Scott D'Amore from the TNA Impact family. Scott is a brilliant wrestling mind that has guided this company and has positioned it to take the next step upward in our industry. Scott is also so much more than this. He is a trusted friend, confidant, teacher, advisor, brother, and mentor to so many within the TNA Impact family. Scott has been the heart of TNA Impact family for over 2 decades. Lynn and Anthem have been instrumental in supporting and building this company back from the ground up. The contributions of Lynn and Anthem have never gone unnoticed by anyone in the company, and we want to make sure Lynn knows this. TNA, simply put, would not have survived without Lynn and Anthem, not just financially, but with the undying faith in Scott and us to revive the company that was on the brink of death. Lynn and Anthem are the foundation that TNA has been able to build upon. We would not have made it back to this point without both of you. The fans know this, and the TNA family knows this. We come to you to voice our concern for TNA Impact, our family, and its future and direction. We, like you, wish to safeguard what we have all worked and sweat and bled decide for to build. We want TNA Impact to continue to grow and to continue to be an enviable place for all professional wrestlers to work. We understand and appreciate that professional wrestling at its core is a business and that the company must provide a fiscally responsible, financially viable product. At the same time, professional wrestling is uniquely situated. The business of professional wrestling is so much more than balance sheets, downloads, and ratings. The wrestling business is and must be its people, its characters, and its storylines. That is to say, there is no wrestling business without the wrestling creative vision and the right people bringing the creative vision to life. To thrive, a wrestling company must have both an eye toward business decisions and its fingers on the pulse of creative decisions and the ever-changing appetite of our fans. It is in light of this concern and our desire to uphold the high standards of TNA Impact that we offer this letter. It is our desire to have a dialogue with you and with the company in an effort to protect the present and the future of TNA Impact for you, for Anthem, for the fans, and for professional wrestlers. We feel strongly that a wrestling person needs to be intimately involved at a high level to ensure that the amazing company we have all built and product we have provided to our fans continues to grow and flourish. It is our opinion that the best possible person for that role was, is, and will be Scott. We recognize that we do not necessarily know all the facts or details around the decision to remove Scott. In life, there is always the rumors, the opinions, and somewhere in between the truth. We rarely get to know which is which. It remains our hope and desire that everyone can set aside the past few days and any hurt feelings or unkind words that may have been exchanged and meet to discuss a path forward that preserves the TNA Impact family we all hold so dearly. We remain steadfast and hopeful that this letter can be a first step to opening and keeping open productive lines of communication to ensure the TNA Impact family continues to be a wonderful, unique place to work for years to come. We ask and implore you both to come together and create a resolution that will reunite this family once again. We look forward to hearing from you and continuing this dialogue. Signed, your TNA family. Matt Cardona would respond to Sean Ross Appified for sharing this letter on X, writing, "Scott D'Amore gave me an opportunity during the pandemic when WWE fired me and AEW didn't want me. Being an Impact gave me my confidence back and I was able to go on and become the deathmatch king and indie god and more successful than I've ever been. Hashtag we want Scott." Speaking about the situation with Anthem removing Scott D'Amore as president of TNA Wrestling, Jeff Jarrett noted on his My World podcast, "As I sat down and drilled through everything without knowing any of the details, and as things trickled out, you hear, and I don't know if it's true or not, but the one thing that's in there is D'Amore tried to buy TNA Wrestling. The reason I think he tried to buy it, if this is true, was because he wanted to spend more money. I don't know the books, but the Asper family is very well to do and they've made a lot of money through the years off the television industry and cable and access and pursuit, and they did the merger a couple years ago, or the acquisition, and Steve Harvey got involved. With all that being said, it drills down to I don't know what TNA's true EBITDA, P&L, like the real financials. What does that really look like, because it's obviously Lynn Asper's sole decision. I ask myself, what did the profit/loss look like over the last 6 years? Because there's no way that you do the rebrand and you have, and maybe it's just the internet, but it felt like it had the most buzz on the company in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe longer than that. They had quite a bit of buzz. The timing of it all is very perplexing. You never judge a book by its cover, but I don't know what their financial picture looks like, and the timing of it all. I'll say this, they got their work cut out, no doubt. No one is irreplaceable. We are watching that right before our very eyes, but no talent, no executive, nobody is irreplaceable in this industry. That being said, what is their plan in place? That's what I've yet to hear come out. I know him, Anthony Cicione, the person taking D'Amore's spot. I worked with him back then, and I think he will tell you he is not a wrestling guy by any stretch of the imagination. He can be an executive, and he is, but I'm thinking at the core, who is the wrestling guy? At the end of the day, that is an enormous component of who is steering the ship creatively. After undergoing surgery on his ankle for torn ligaments, AEW star Kota Ibushi posted a photo on Instagram and wrote, that's right, doing fine. I never want to take a year off, I'm sure it'll fix it. For another update on Jeff Hardy's condition following AEW Dynamite, Ringside News wrote that on today's Wrestling Observer Live, Bryan Alvarez confirmed that Hardy did indeed suffer a broken nose. However, it's fortunate that the former world champion did not sustain a concussion in the incident. Despite the injury, Hardy's matchup is still set to air on tomorrow's AEW Rampage. It's worth noting that the broadcast will commence at an earlier time of 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, deviating from its usual time slot of 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Reviewing the WWE contract status of Drew McIntyre, it was said that Fightful Select has confirmed that McIntyre's deal now extends past WrestleMania, and that some injury and inactivity time was added to the deal in order to get it there. Sources near McIntyre claim that there have been conversations between the two sides, and it appears as if they want to get a deal done. However, they also claim that one isn't done in place and that nothing has changed on that front. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.